Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Code 9, the Successful Parenting Show. Joining me today is Sister Berak Hussain, who's a registered psychotherapist and counsellor and works at the Health Clinic in Carleton University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So today we're going to be talking about bullying, and you've done quite a bit of work with bullying and mental health. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So as a therapist or counsellor, a lot of my work involves working with university students at Carleton University in Ottawa. And I see a lot of people who have experienced bullying as children or even in their young adulthood as well. And so the work that I do is one-on-one counselling, as well as give workshops on stress management, how to deal with cultural adaptation. So as the international student counsellor, I see a lot of exchange and international students from England as well that come. And so I help them, adapt and adjust and deal with cultural adaptation into the Canadian environment, especially when we have so much snow and cold weather up to here sometimes. So a lot of the work I do involves dealing with stress, how to manage stress, mental health illnesses such as depression, anxiety. We deal with all sorts of issues ranging from suicide, abuse, including bullying. And so this is the work I do at the university, and outside in the community. Myself and a group of mental health advocates founded the Serenity Islamic Mental Health Awareness Initiative, which is the first of its kind, alhamdulillah, from a Muslim perspective, to bring awareness to the community on mental health. All these issues that exist in our community, but we don't talk about it because of the stereotypes and the taboo and the shame that it brings to the families and the community. So alhamdulillah, we started this about 2 years ago, in response to the need of our community with some young people who took their lives. And so there was a reactionary response rather than a proactive response. And so this initiative started to help address these issues. And alhamdulillah, we've been successful in terms of doing monthly psychoeducational events ranging on these topics again: suicide, depression, relationship issues, drugs and addictions, and to bring awareness to the community. And this led up to, as what the Canadian media dubbed it, Canada's first Muslim mental health conference, which was held in May 2016. And so we had various speakers come in from the States, such as Sister Nicole Correri, Dr. Salam Al-Attar from Ontario. And what was beautiful about it, we had people from all sorts of diversity, so different Muslim backgrounds and ethnicities and different faiths as well, to come and talk about these issues, including violence. And so this is where the bullying bit comes in. So alhamdulillah, we've been this year again connecting with different scholars and speakers to talk about mental health from an Islamic perspective. And part of why I'm here in England is I was brought in to do a seminar on that, which took place yesterday, alhamdulillah. And so this year again, we're working towards our second annual conference and hopefully bringing in some well-known speakers, and not necessarily mental health experts, but people who can talk about psychology, the self, and because there's a lot of psychology within our faith that we've had 1400 years ago that we've only discovered in recent modern psychology in the last 200 years. And we have that basis from our faith. And this is the kind of work that I'm very passionate about, to teach people and to bring awareness to that there's no shame. It takes a lot of courage to come out and get help and support so you can reach your full potential. Why limit yourself, And just like we have physical illnesses that we take care of, if you have diabetes or cardiovascular diseases, what do? You go to the doctor, you get medication, and you change your lifestyle to deal with that. So there's no real taboo around that. People openly talk about their physical illnesses. You just give them the chance, they'll talk about it. But when it comes to our mental health, right away the assumption within our culture, when you're talking about mental issues, is that you're crazy, you're mad.
Yeah.
There's junoon in Arabic, as we say. So we're trying to destigmatize that and normalize it in the sense, well, this has existed for so long within our communities. It's breaking up families. When you talk about relationship issues, marriages, the breakdown, the rise of divorces, and the effects on that on children. Yeah. And so this brings us to our topic today, what we're talking about in terms of bullying. And so all of this has a huge impact on the developing child from very early on in life, middle school, high school, and as young adults.
How many of the cases that you've seen, mental health cases, have been as a result of bullying?
A large case. I can't give you an exact number, but a lot of people come in. First, they come in with, I am depressed. They will write down on their intake forms, I'm here because of depression. I'm here because I have suicidal thoughts, anxiety, or stress. So this is a common thing I would see. But then when we do, our interviewing and our questioning, and you dig deep, you come down and you see the roots of the issues. Whether it's abuse in the home, whether there has been a sexual assault, whether there has been bullying as children and how that has affected them, or bullying at the high school and university level.
Okay, when to talk about bullying, because this is an advice show for parents, so how can parents look out for signs of bullying in their children if their children are being bullied at school? Sometimes it's easy, to just sort of almost be in denial that a child is being bullied. They might think that, oh no, my child is fine, my child will never get bullied, especially because it isn't something that you want to kind of admit out loud. So how can you tell if your child is being bullied at school, for example?
You want to be aware of all mental health signs.
Okay.
And then you can break it down in terms of what.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, we look at a child who's perhaps not behaving the same way that they used to be. If they're a happy, outgoing child, all of a sudden they're withdrawn. They're not wanting to go to school, let's say, or attend activities, extracurricular activities that they normally enjoy going to. They're not eating the same way, whether it's more or less. They're sleeping more or less. So these are typical signs and symptoms of stress that could lead to different mental illnesses, which could include, in this case, the effects of bullying. So again, being withdrawn, isolated, change of behavior of the child from their regular routine and behavior. So these are things that parents should keep an eye out for.
I think most parents whose children are being bullied, they want to know, why is my child being bullied? Why does bullying happen?
There's a number of reasons. And it goes back, so I'll go through the various reasons. So it can go back to the home of the bully, let's say. So this could be a home where there is violence in the home, where the child has witnessed violence against the mother, or, abuse against the father as well. And so it could also be that the attention is away from this child. And so the bully child is seeking attention, perhaps. How does this attention come out? In the form of aggression, whether it's at home or in the school, at the playground. So the child is not deliberately doing it to get the attention consciously. It's happening at the subconscious level. And so they behave this way with other children. That's one theory. Another theory could be, some kids are just plain mean, we could just say. I believe in the human nature, and we believe that in Islam, the fitra, the nature of the person is good, it's not evil. And there's a learned behavior that occurs, which is what I was saying, when they observe what's happening in the home. That can be mimicked out on the playground when they see how the father hurts the mother or the mother hurts the father, or elder siblings, or there could be also sexual assault against this child, or other people are assaulting the child bully, and so that behavior is being exhibited in the form of bullying against other children. And so that's how the learned behavior can occur. So there's a number of reasons of why a bully can develop into a bully.
And if you do find out that your child is being bullied, what should you do as a parent to sort of overcome that as an issue?
There's a number of measures that the parent could look into. First and foremost is to be aware and admit. There's no shame in that. Again, that takes a lot of courage to be cognizant and aware that this is happening. Yeah. And so a lot of parents will deny and say, no, never my child. My child is the one who's being bullied. Yeah. So they need to be aware and accept the fact that their child is indeed hurting other people. And so with the social worker at the school, the counselor, the principal, the teachers, you can have an intervention to sit with the child and talk with them. And there are a number of programs around the world in different schools that are implemented to help with that. But an intervention does need to be happening to discuss with the child that their behavior is not right, it's unacceptable, it's not appropriate, and to retrain the child in terms of what is good behavior. The thing here, though, is that we have to understand from what I was saying earlier, the child bully is behaving this way because a need of his or hers is not being met. Yeah. A psychological, spiritual, physical, emotional need. Perhaps there's not enough attachment and bonding developed with the parents. And so this child is seeking that elsewhere in the form of aggression. So that's why if you get counselors or psychologists or doctors involved here, they can retrace or do their thing with their assessment to see what is the root cause of what is happening with this child, to help them to fill that need.
If your child is the one that is being bullied, so that will ultimately knock their confidence levels, how do you help your child? How do you counsel your child through that?
It's explaining that it's not their fault.
Okay.
They will start taking the blame. You mentioned something very important, self-esteem and confidence, which is, by the way, also a factor with the bully.
Yeah.
They could be missing their self-esteem, or it's low in their confidence, so they try to compensate on the playground by being aggressive and forceful like that. So it's a false sense of self-esteem. So that's the bully. The child that is being bullied, of course their self-esteem is going to be knocked out.
Yeah.
And so again, I would recommend the support. And this is so important when you're dealing with mental health issues or bullying or violence in any form. There has to be an acceptance and support, no judgment. So helping this child by encompassing them with the support from the school, from the teachers, from the family, the siblings, to help build them up again. And counseling is superb for that. And I can attest to that as a counselor who engages in cultural counseling, faith-based, and as needed sometimes with my clients, if they need Islamic counseling practices as well, to work on building up the sense of self of the child, being aware that it is not their fault, and working on recognizing that these external factors are independent of their worth. Because a bully can really attack your sense of worth. And the child or the person can develop that into their personality, that, you know what, I am worthless, I deserve to be mistreated. And so how does this carry on? This carries on into relationships. When it's time for them to be part of a marriage, their sense of worth or loss of sense of worth can attract a personality type that is very dominant, that is very aggressive. So it's amazing how this works as children, how it develops into young adulthood, and the type of people that we attract to us for marriage later on. And then, of course, the cycle continues. And this is where you find within marriages unhealthy relationships, because the person hasn't fully developed their sense of strength, their character, their worth. And I see that a lot. And I'm called in outside of my university work within the community. I'm constantly called in, families' homes, and advice and consults, including, believe it or not, families of prominent people in the community, whether they're people of authority, whether they're imams or sheikhs, where their children are depressed because of the violence that happens in the home, the aggression that is happening in the home, and how it affects these children, where they request me to come in because they're afraid that their child is going to commit suicide because of what they're witnessing and how that affects their sense of worth. And so that's reflected out. And like I said, this is a sad reality in our community, that this is happening with prominent people who preach one thing outside of the home, teaching people relations, good relations and Islamic behavior, yet inside the home, what kind of generation are they bringing up? The hypocrisy is stunning, to say the least. And we see the effects of that with the children that are growing up. But it's something we need to be talking about openly, so we can reverse the effects of the next generation of children that are taking over to prepare themselves for the awaited one. So it's a big deal, so to speak.
So you mentioned depression, and that's obviously one of the say effects of being bullied. What other effects are there of being bullied? And you also mentioned how it can kind of go into adulthood. So how do we as parents combat that, stop it from reaching adulthood?
The first part of your question, in terms of symptoms and behavior, anxiety. High anxiety. So you will see a lot of fear in children. Let's say, we're going to go to the masjid, or we're going to go to the majlis, or we're going to go to the scouts, or whatever activities they're involved with. You will see them refusing to go. You will see them making excuses. You will see them in terms of physical response of anxiety, so shaking, you know, their heart is just racing. They could be sweating. They could be, excuse me, it could come out in the form of yelling. One moment.
Yeah.
It could come out in the...
So they're not willing to basically...
They're not willing to participate, but then they become perhaps aggressive themselves.
Okay.
So they're showing signs of resistance, of wanting to go anywhere. So anxiety can be exhibited in different forms in males and females in different ages, of course. So you're saying, how does this exhibit itself in young adulthood? You will, and I see this with my clients, is that a lot of the young men and women are isolated. They're very lonely. They don't have a lot of social network around them. They just go to school and they come and see a counselor because, you know, I'm depressed. And then again, we go through the questioning and it's because of the root cause of that. They don't know how to engage in connecting and speaking with people. So the social interactions are completely gone, and then that also becomes social. It can develop into social anxiety where they're afraid of talking to people. They're afraid of what people are going to say about them. And they're afraid of being judged and hurt again, or reliving early childhood trauma related to bullying, especially if they haven't processed it, which is why I'm so adamant for parents of bullies and parents of children who are being bullied, get the support early on. Your child needs to process this, needs to learn the coping mechanisms to deal with their anxiety and depression. You would hate to hear a 9-year-old say that they wanted to kill themselves. And that happens. And I hear that a lot from the young people that come into my office where they say, you know, I did experience this bullying, but my parents put me into counseling, and you see this is the one that successfully has worked through that.
Okay, and overcome it. Okay, well, thank you very much. We're just going to go to a short video. So please stay tuned. We're just going to go to Sister Naseem Walji with Parent Gate.